That book is chef's kiss. I promise, I think everyone should read that, especially if their parents weren't necessarily the most respectful. Very, very beneficial to not only my kids' development, but the way I relate to them in our relationship. You're not gonna resonate 100% with everything that an author got a tissue. I don't know if it's on. Hello and welcome back to another video. If you're new here, my name is Sabrina and today we're diving into all of the parenting and conscious living recommendations that I have for you. Ever since I started sharing about parenting and conscious living on social media, kind of my mental health journey and how I got into this is my most asked question. Where did you learn all of this information? What books, what podcasts? Obviously, a lot of it has to do with my own personal experience and how I feel like applying these techniques to my real life is panning out. I have found conscious living and gentle parenting / conscious parenting very, very beneficial to not only my kids' development, but the way I relate to them in our relationship. So here it is. I figured there should be a landing page for all of this information because with it being my most asked question, I just want to be able to shoot the link to people. So if you are here because I shot you the link, I hope you find this video helpful. I would strongly recommend getting a pen and paper or opening the notes app on your phone and simply just writing down a couple books or resources that resonate with you. I'm going to tell you a little bit about every single one. One thing you will find when you're diving into these is you're not going to resonate 100% with everything that an author. Some of these recommendations, maybe a social media channel, might seem a little too crunchy or extremist for you. That is okay. It is the underlying message that they have, and that is why I'm sharing it. I definitely don't wholeheartedly agree with every single author, with every single person I'm going to give you. These are simply people that have been helpful for me learning and understanding the concept of conscious living and gentle parenting. I've split this up into two categories, both parenting and conscious living, because I feel like within conscious living, if you were to just dive headfirst into conscious living, you would stumble upon conscious parenting, which is also known as gentle parenting, authoritative parenting, respectful parenting, mindful parenting. There are so many names for it. So the parenting category is obviously just strictly parenting. People that are dedicated to giving you the information you need to parent a child with these techniques, if you will, in this parenting style. So we're gonna go through parenting first. Got a tissue for my issue. Ugh. In each category, we're gonna go books, podcasts, and social media channels. I am just gonna give them to you. I'm gonna put overlay here if I don't have the actual book in my hand. The first book that I dove headfirst into is A Theory of Objectivist Parenting by Rosalind Ross. This is the best book if you're starting out because not only is it so small, you can finish this in literally a day. Rosalind Ross has a YouTube video. I will link it in the description box below. I think it's an hour and 20 minutes where she reads this front to back. You don't actually need to buy this. Would I suggest buying it so that you can highlight pages that resonate with you? Absolutely. She just dives into almost the basics of gentle parenting. She calls it objectivist parenting. There's a million names for it, like I said. Why you should not use rewards and punishments. Such a good starter book, and at the end of this book as well, she has tons and tons of resources. I highlighted these two because I read them. I have also put all of these books in my Amazon storefront, so you can click on my storefront in the description box below and go get the actual paperbacks if you're looking for those. So here's number one. Absolutely love her. The next resource I have for you is Dear Parents, Caring for Infants with Respect. Again, it's going into respectful parenting. This book is great if you have a baby and you're trying to understand, how can I gentle parent a baby? Because a baby can't respond back to you. A baby doesn't understand what you're saying. How they say when you leave the hospital, you don't get like a manual for how to take care of your baby. I feel like this is a manual. Like it really is manual style. Number 20, feeding. It gives you literally a handbook as to how you can care for your infant with respect. I don't think you're gonna agree with all of it. That is okay. I kind of just pick and chose what resonated with me, but I definitely think you should pick this up. The next book is No Bad Kids by Janet Lansbury. Janet Lansbury is queen of conscious, respectful parenting. She has a podcast called Unruffled that is going to be in my podcast section. But she also has a blog. So like, if there is anything you're struggling with your kid, go to her podcast or go to her blog, type in hitting, throwing. I swear this woman could be my mother. She is literally amazing. No Bad Kids was great because it's teaching you how to care for your toddler and not look at them in such a negative light. Look at them like they are a whole human that is new to this earth and trying to learn how to relate to you. Best book you could grab for that age, I think. The next book is a book by Daniel Siegel, The Whole Brain Child. He also has another one called No Drama Discipline. I haven't read No Drama Discipline, but I absolutely love The Whole Brain Child. I listened to it and then I bought the paperback after so that I could go through and highlight. I have yet to, but I read this last year and it's just so science and fact-based. If you are somebody that loves to know the why, you want to pick this up. They're both doctors and there are so many studies that are mentioned throughout this book. I think if you have a spouse or a partner or a mother or a brother or a sister that is having a hard time with you gentle parenting, maybe they just think that it's a load of bullcrap, actually pick up a science-backed book. It's so helpful. And lastly is Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. I am like 70% of the way through this book. It is very information heavy, and since picking it up, it's just like, it's a lot. It's a lot to take in, and I don't know how else to put it. I think you should pick it up if you were raised in a home and you don't understand maybe where your mom came from, where your dad came from. Did they really do their best? Maybe you're holding resentment for your parents and for the way you were raised, because I feel like that's kind of inevitable once you stumble upon gentle parenting, is you kind of reflect on your childhood. That book is chef's kiss. I promise. I think everyone should read that, especially if their parents weren't necessarily the most respectful. So that is it for books. I am moving on to podcasts. I mentioned Janet Lansbury's podcast, Unruffled. I strongly think that every single person should pick up this podcast and just listen to it from time to time. When I am folding laundry and I'm really struggling with maybe patience with my daughters when they were potty training, I listened to so many episodes, and I still do from time to time. There's also another podcast, Raising Good Humans. I haven't done a super deep dive into this podcast. I don't listen to it on a regular basis, but I have picked up a few episodes. I have listened to a few episodes is what I'm trying to say. Let's just jump into social media real quick. YouTube, The Mellow Mama. She is kind of who really I discovered very first. I was watching Baby Essentials video on YouTube, and I just kind of stumbled upon her saying like, I talk everything conscious living, conscious parenting, and I was like, what is that? And that is kind of how I took a dive into conscious parenting. It is the meat of what she is saying that you will, I think, really like. She's also very calm and mellow, hence the name Mellow Mama. On Instagram, I love Big Little Feelings. Love them so much. They also have a podcast after bedtime, and I think they also have courses and stuff. Do I think you need to pay money? No. It's too much free good stuff online. Also Respectful Mom. I have loved her. She has a little like kids reading book. I have loved her since day one. Big Little Feelings and Respectful Mom. Those are my two Instagram favorites. Now moving on to TikTok. I have several videos, I think like almost 90 videos talking about parenting on TikTok, but I know that TikTok isn't the most searchable. It just doesn't have the best layout. In my parenting playlist, you can like go back through and scroll, and I've started titling my videos different so you can just like see what it's about in the title as you're scrolling through the playlist. But the other three people I can recommend from TikTok because I absolutely love their content. Number one, Destiny Ann. She also has a podcast called Bitch You Doing a Good Job. I just think that she makes gentle parenting feel so real. She constantly talks about how she relates to her kid, and she's not necessarily like a script girl, like, I see you're having a hard time, I'm gonna move you one, whatever, right? Like, she makes it feel so real, so raw, and it doesn't even feel gentle. It just feels like real and raw, but I absolutely love her. Rachel Rogers, she's also like, I think her handle is The Considerate Mama. She doesn't come from a good upbringing like myself, and I think that is why I absolutely love her content. I think she also has workshops and other things that you can pay for if you want more information from her, but what she has on her page is plenty and it is amazing. And lastly, this is a resource I came across this last year. I wanted to share a guy that talks about gentle parenting because I have pretty much all guys that talk about conscious living in my conscious living recommendations, but not in my gentle parenting recommendations, and it is very much so for men as well. My husband is so passionate about this as well, and the way that he relates to our daughters, and I tell him we literally could start a podcast because you are like the poster child for like immigrant that comes from a rough upbringing and has chosen to be very, very gentle with your kids, and not even gentle, but just respectful with your kids. I love talking about parenting with my husband, and I just think that there needs to be more men in the space. Maybe I just don't know of them, but John is great. And that is all I have for parenting. Let's just get right into conscious living because this video is going to be pretty long. Starting with conscious living, the very first book I have to recommend, I don't know where all of my books are since moving into this apartment. So the first one is The Art of Living Consciously by Nathaniel Branden. This is a heavy book, and I am sure if I read it 100 times over, I would get something different out of it every single time. But the way it opened up my mind to conscious living was exactly what I needed at that time. If you just want to, if you don't have kids, maybe you don't have kids yet, or maybe you do have kids and you're just like not into like the sappy, gentle stuff, read The Art of Living Consciously, because I swear this guy has such a good way of wording how to be self-aware in your relationships, in your interactions, in parenting. He has like one chapter on parenting, I think. And it's definitely a book that I want to pick up again and read, because last time I read it was in 2019. The next three books are a little more, a little more spiritual. I think they fall in like the Buddhist realm. First one is You Are Here. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce the name. This book I just read a couple months ago and highlighted the hell out of it as well. Absolutely love this guy. My favorite thing about this book is he really taps into the fact that you are in control of your happiness, of the joy, and it is simply just by being present and the things that you can do on a regular basis to be present. I mean, all conscious living is just self-awareness and being present. It's so good. Couldn't say good enough things about this. The next book I have is Zen and the Art of Happiness. I have bought a copy of this for my mother, for my best friend. I continually say it's my favorite book ever. It's just a really good book that talks about pretty much everything is meant for a reason, and he gets really, really deep in that and shares lots of stories, and I think that every single person should read it. It is also a very quick read, so you could read it on the weekend. I think everybody that talks about conscious living is going to talk about the 4 agreements. Again, this is a book that you almost should just reread every single year, because the 4 different agreements, I also highlighted the hell out of this one. The 4 different agreements is just a way of living, conscious living. I don't know, I'm so repetitive, but this book is really good. You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay, I read on my phone, and I think that is also an amazing book, absolutely amazing. She talks about how repressing and not dealing with your emotional junk manifests as diseases and disorders, and I genuinely believe that. And I think that if you're looking into maybe you have tons of symptoms. Louise Hay had some sort of cancer, I want to say breast cancer, and she had the belief that if she started living more self-aware, more present, and not holding on to so much anger and resentment, that she would be able to get rid of breast cancer on her own, living through affirmations, and she totally did. She got rid of breast cancer with not chemo, not radiation, nothing, just the power of her own mind, and I think that it is amazing in itself. Anyone that does that should write a book, and she did, and it is absolutely incredible. 2 more books in the conscious living category, A New Earth. I have not even finished this book, but again, it is so good. It dives into your identity, your ego, deconstructing that and rebuilding yourself up pretty much, and it is amazing. He also writes A Power of Now, which I've yet to read, but it's a well-known book in the self-help world. That is it for books. Moving on to conscious living podcasts, and I think they're just more so self-help. I have like a top 5. Number 1, On Purpose with Jay Shetty. I think there's a reason why it's like #1 podcast in the world. He truly is incredible, and I think he was a monk for several years, and he just has so much self-awareness in his own, and he also talks about relationships from time to time, and I just think that he is incredible. Next up, Ed Mylett. I don't know if Ed Mylett is ex-military or like professional athlete, but I would say if you fall within that realm, maybe you have more of a tough mindset, you would love Ed Mylett. He's very much so, he has like this deep voice, and he's very I'm not gonna say he's not hard like David Goggins, but he gives like this hardness about his personality. I don't know how to explain it, but he's also like a big giant teddy bear. He talks about how he lost his dad to alcoholism and how that affected him, and how he uses affirmations and meditation, and just all around a beautiful soul, and he really is doing so much by sharing his experience. And he also has amazing people on his podcast. I love his podcast. Next up is Mel Robbins' podcast. I don't have anything to say other than she is so real and raw. The way she swears, the way she talks about life, the people she has on her podcast too, also amazing. Next up is Heal Thyself by Dr. G. He is amazing if you're also in like a science nerd, if you love the science behind why. He's a holistic. Him and Milet did one podcast episode together. I will link that below too because it is amazing. I love Dr. G so much. He talks about gut health. He talks about, you know, meditations, affirmations, anything you can find, anything you can think of under the sun. He kind of has a very holistic approach to it, and definitely coincides with conscious living. The last podcast I'm going to recommend is actually two more. The Skinny Confidential, the Him and Her podcast. I think that it is very light. It's very fun. They also have really, really good interviews with people like Ed Milet, with people like financial advisors, anyone you can think of. They are so diverse. They did one with Khalil Rafati. I think I'm saying that right. A guy that was pretty much down in the slumps because of drugs and built himself up, and now he owns Sun Life Organics, and you just get such good, it's almost like you're not only listening to a self-help book, but you're reading memoirs, and it's just like, I don't know, it's just amazing. And then lastly, The Overwhelmed Brain with Paul C. I listened to this podcast. It is, I think, a pretty small podcast. I listened to this podcast when I was in the depths of postpartum depression and needed something to pick me up out of it. He talks about how he was an abusive husband in a relationship, and like the marriage was broken off, and how he's kind of gone from being the abusive partner to healing himself. And I think that that is so freaking beautiful. He talks about very day-to-day stuff and how you can show up better, just very much so self-aware. I have quite a few social media channels for conscious living because I just follow anyone and everyone under the sun that gives me good advice and that I might save and come back to. All of these pages on TikTok have been so helpful and truly the foundation of my healing journey. I feel like the type of content you consume is so important. If you are constantly consuming influencers and all of this junk that is so negative, you are not going to make too much progress moving forward. Follow people that make you feel good. And for me, that's the informative heavy people. I just got access to 10-minute reels on Instagram today. So now I can like repurpose all of my content from TikTok to Instagram, because that was the #1 reason why I didn't share information that I was putting on TikTok on Instagram, is because I was limited to 1.5 minutes and my content tends to lean more toward 3 minutes. So prepare to be sick of me on Instagram if that's where you're here from. But thank you so much for following along on this journey and for liking my content. I swore I was not going to talk about parenting when I started social media. The #1 sentence that continually popped up in my head is, who's going to listen to a 20-something-year-old talk about parenting literally babies? Like, she is a baby parenting babies. And, you know, someone said something to me that just resonated with me so deeply. They were like, I would rather listen to a 20-something-year-old in the thick of parenting and in the thick of her healing journey, giving real-time experiences, than listen to 80-year-old Janet talk about her raising her 11 kids in a very different time in the world. And that was just like I need to share. And as soon as I told myself, as soon as I started, okay, if I can just help one mom, if I can help one mom connect these dots that I have connected, I have done my job. And I love the DMs that I get that just say things like, you've helped me so much, I'm this old and this has completely changed my life and my relationship with my kids respond to me so much better. And it just feels like, wow, this is literally what I was meant to do. It feels like Sabrina's purpose is to share all of this information with everybody else. Anyways, I will quit rambling. Thank you so much for tuning into this video, and stay tuned because I will be uploading videos every single Friday. And we also have Vlogmas coming. Vlogmas, my very first Vlogmas. We are taking a stab at it. So stay tuned. I love you so much. Bye.